And there came a day unlike any other, when Earth's mightiest heroes and heroines found themselves united against a common threat. On that day, the Avengers were born. To fight the foes no single superhero could withstand. Through the years, their roster has prospered, changed many times, but their glory has never been denied. Heed the call, for now, the Avengers assemble. So the Avengers are the premier super team in the Marvel Universe, and becoming a member is honestly a great honor for any hero. With a regularly rotating roster and 60 stunning years of stories, there have been a great number of people who have called themselves Avenger. With the popularity of the MCU in recent years, more people than ever know who the Avengers are. I'm betting everyone watching this can name at least 10 Avengers without even batting an eye. And that's just what we're going to do here today. But we're not going to name just any 10 Avengers. We're going to talk about the first 10 Avengers. Inspired by the success of the Justice League of America, which is another first 10 for another day, Stan Lee wanted to bring the biggest names together in one single book, and in late 1963, the Avengers #1 was published. It was Thor's brother Loki that decided he was going to manipulate the Hulk into fighting Thor. But instead of Thor, Rick Jones decided to contact the Fantastic Four for help. So Loki intercepted the radio signals and shoots it off towards Thor, but it's also intercepted by Ant-Man and the Wasp as well as Iron Man. So all those heroes teamed up to fight the Hulk, but Thor was like, Loki's behind this. So he goes off and fights trolls and stuff. It's kind of weird, but he sticks Loki to his hammer using magnetism. While everybody else is fighting Hulk, Thor returns to Earth and is like, hey, don't be fighting. So the five of them actually team up and fight Loki, although it's mostly Ant-Man, honestly, with a bunch of ants, because yeah, we'll get to that in a sec. But they all decide to work together, and they're like, hey, we work well as a team, let's be a team. So who decided to join first? It's Ant-Man who brings up the idea. He says he and the Wasp were talking about it. Early in the issue, Wasp is like, Thor's so good looking. Oh, Iron Man's ugly. And he's like, man, I don't want you to spend more time with Thor, because he's all jealous and stuff, so I really don't think it would have been his idea. So I'm going to give credit to the Wasp. I'm going to call the Wasp the first Avenger. Here, officially. Marvel gave me the authority. I'm deciding. It's official. The Wasp is the first Avenger. Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp. She first appeared in Tales to Astonish #44, just honestly a few months before the Avengers. She acquired the ability to shrink, and she got some insect-like wings, and she became the crime-fighting partner of Ant-Man. She was there to actually avenge the death of her scientist father. While Wasp would appear in many other series over the years, she became most associated with the Avengers. She's actually served on the team more consistently than most of the others. There actually isn't anyone other than Captain America who has served as team leader longer than the Wasp. So some of her earlier appearances did kind of paint her as the weak link of the team, a bit of a wuss, not really doing anything. She would go on to more than prove herself as a capable Avenger. So that makes Ant-Man, of course, our number 2. Hank Pym, not Scott Lang. Mentioned above there, Hank Pym was the crime-fighting partner of the Wasp, although he actually appeared in Tales to Astonish #27, and this was towards the end of the 50s in the monster era, where everything was kind of like, here's a different monster for science fiction story. Issue 27 actually featured a scientist who got shrunk and wound up getting lost in an anthill, and that turned out to be Hank Pym. So 8 months later, in Tales to Astonish #35, he returned, but this time he was Ant-Man. He perfected his shrinking serum, he developed a helmet that allowed him to communicate with ants, and by the way, the way Stan Lee wrote stuff in the 60s, ants could do absolutely anything. There was nothing an ant couldn't do. But Hank Pym would change his superhero identity several times over the years. He became Giant Man in the first issue of Tales to Astonish after Avengers #1. But if he was Ant-Man or Giant Man or Goliath or Yellow Jacket or Dr. Pym or even the Wasp, Henry Pym was always associated with the Avengers. And the other founding Avengers would have a bunch of famous stories outside of the Avengers, but Ant-Man and Wasp, they generally found their big fame was alongside the Avengers. Tony Stark was the first to say, work as a team, I'm for it. So that makes him the third Avenger. Iron Man debuted in March of 1963 in Tales of Suspense #39. You know the story. He was a weapons dealer, he got injured and captured. They wanted him to build him a weapon, but he decided to build himself an Iron Man suit instead. With a box of scraps! Iron Man, much like Henry Pym, would have many looks over the years. In fact, by Avengers #3, he would be in his new armor. But he would always be Iron Man. But not always Tony Stark. So Iron Man is the Avenger. He's always an Avenger. Even when he's not with the team, Tony is still the benefactor that would fund them. He set up the Maria Stark Foundation. The Avengers are based out of his mansion in New York. Jarvis was Tony Stark's butler, and he became the butler for the Avengers. So even when Iron Man isn't an active Avenger, he's still very present, and he's always available for the team to call him. When Thor proclaimed that there is much good we might do together, he became the 4th Avenger. Thor Odinson is the god of thunder from Norse mythology. He debuted in Marvel Comics in August of 1962 with Journey into Mystery #83. Only 12 cents! Though this version's actually a doctor with a bum leg named Dr. Donald Blake. He finds the Hammer of Thor, and because it's enchanted, he becomes Thor when he wants to. Again, the host would change a time or two, but Thor is the Avenger. It doesn't matter if he's Don Blake, Eric Masterson, or Jake Olsen. And again, Thor is one of the main Avengers. When you think Avengers, it's Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. They are the big three. Though his duties on Asgard and adventures across the 9 realms would often keep him away from the Avengers, he's still a huge part of Earth's mightiest heroes. So the 5th and final member to join the Avengers on the day unlike any other is the Hulk.
Melted by gamma rays, turned into the Hulk. Ain't he on glamour rays? Wrecking the town with the power of a bull. Ain't no monster clown.
He says he's sick of being hunted and he'd rather be with them than against them. Which is ironic because the Avengers are going to spend a lot of time hunting the Hulk for the next few years. But what's that? Oh, the Hulk is a founding Avenger and a big part of the team? No, the MCU has fooled you. I'm afraid the MCU does things a little differently. The Hulk is actually going to leave the Avengers at the end of the very next issue, and it would be nearly 50 years before he would officially rejoin the team again. Right around 2012. When the movie came out. But that's not to say the Hulk would be absent from the pages of the Avengers, but in the years that followed, he'd be much more associated with the Defenders over any other team. So we're out of the founding Avengers, and the first official recruit and sixth member of the Avengers is none other than Captain America. Captain America was one of Timely Comics' earliest superheroes, and by far the most popular one during the World War II era. Timely was what Marvel was called during the 40s. Then they became Atlas, then they became Marvel. Captain America debuted in 1941 on the cover of his own comic, punching Hitler in the face. So Steve Rogers was a skinny kid from Brooklyn who wanted nothing more than to do his part and fight the war. He volunteered to get experimented on, and after a successful bombardment of Vita Rays, he became the Sentinel of Liberty, and he joined the soldiers on the front as Captain America. Though his war would be cut short towards the end, mind you, because on a mission to stop Baron Zemo, he was successful, but he ended up falling into the cold ocean and being lost to time. In Avengers number 4, he would be found by the Avengers and thawed out, and then the Avengers would waste no time in getting turned to stone, and Captain America, along with Rick Jones, and a really creepy obsession with Rick Jones, that's another video for another day. He had to go save them. At the end of issue 4, Captain America would accept a request to join the Avengers, and that's where the Man at a Time would honestly find his home. Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, Giant Man, and the Wasp. That was the roster, and it was like a really hard-hitting lineup. It only lasted for 11 more issues. Something else of note would be number 9. That's where Wonder Man first showed up and tried to join the team. Simon Williams would become a pawn of Baron Zemo. He got amazing powers, but he's gonna die in 1 week unless he takes the antidote that only Zemo has. And Zemo's plan was to have Wonder Man actually join the Avengers and destroy them from the inside. He honestly comes close. He's like, I want to join the Avengers. Baron Zemo, give me powers. And Captain America's like, no, I don't trust Zemo at all, so I'm not trusting you. Otherwise, we'd be talking about Wonder Man as the 7th Avenger instead of he joins way later. But yeah, Wonder Man does fight alongside them, and he dies in the process. So as I mentioned earlier, this heavy hitter powerhouse of a team doesn't really last long, because Stan Lee honestly thought it would be good to free up some of the space in the Avengers and give it to heroes that didn't have their own books. He's like, I want to see some other guys step up and become Avengers. You know, Iron Man's got his own book. He can do stuff there. Thor can do stuff in his book. We're going to focus on some other guys. So in Avengers number 16, most of the team left, and we move on to an era referred to as Cap's Kooky Quartet. Captain America and Rick Jones were off on some other mission, and he's like, hey, Avengers, don't come on this mission, okay? And they were like, yeah, sure. And he went away for like weeks, and nobody knew where he was. And Thor disappeared. He was actually doing some Asgard stuff in Asgard, but he wasn't on Earth. And Iron Man and the Wasp and Giant Man were like, you know what, the Avengers is fun, but I kind of want a vacation, so let's just call it quits. And they decide to disband the Avengers, but before they can officially disband, Hawkeye breaks into the mansion and ties up Jarvis just to show them what he can do, because he wants to be an Avenger. And Iron Man's like, yeah, you know what? We're looking for replacements anyway, which they weren't, they were disbanding. Hawkeye is accepted into the Avengers. So Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, first appeared in Tales of Suspense number 57, which was an Iron Man book at the time, about 6 months before his appearance in Avengers 16. He was a trick shot artist working at a carnival where he witnessed Iron Man save the day and figured, I can do better than that, and I can get all this glory. So he makes a costume and some very well-engineered trick arrows, and he sets out to make the other costumed adventurers look sick. He stops a robbery, but the police think he's the bad guy, and that leads to him falling in with the wrong crowd, and the wrong crowd is the Black Widow, a future Avenger herself. She ends up pitting the Amethyst Archer up against Iron Man a few times before he would go on to join the Avengers. Again, Hawkeye's another one of those characters that I feel really embodies the Avengers perfectly. He's synonymous with the team. Although he has no powers, he's able to keep up with the rest of them no problem. He's gonna be a regular member of the Avengers for like, from here on out. For most of it. He was with the Thunderbolts for quite a while, but like I still associate him most with the Avengers. If he's alive, he's with the Avengers. He even went on to start and lead the West Coast Avengers. When I think Hawkeye, I think Avengers, and he's easily up in the top 10 Avengers of all time. But Hawkeye did join them, and he wasn't the only reformed villain who was going to seek membership. The next two Avengers both previously showed up in X-Men a number of times alongside the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. I'm speaking, of course, of the mutant twins Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch, who I'm putting together at number 8 and 9 because like they only ever appear with each other and they join together. First appearing in X-Men number 4, written by Stan Lee. This is like all written by Stan Lee, I should mention that. Like, this is all Stan Lee. Allegedly. But they show up as members of Magneto's anti-X-Men, and that's how we see them for like their next few appearances. They're always with Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, though they're usually honestly trying to leave. In X-Men number 11, they finally do leave. They're like, nah, we're out of here, we've repaid our debt, we're gone. And Cyclops is like, join the X-Men, and they're like, no, we're done fighting, we're not joining the X-Men at all. But then they do think, oh, you know what, we could probably get into the Avengers. So they join the Avengers, and they're hoping that they can do a bunch of good with their powers without constantly being reminded that they're mutants. So they are accepted onto the team, and the others can like go on their vacation, you know? They also did ask Namor to join that team, and he declined. And Iron Man was also like, oh, I wish we could find the Hulk and maybe get the Hulk to be on the team so they could have some power. Scarlet Witch, more than Quicksilver, would go on to be associated with the Avengers. Quicksilver would come and go very often, Wanda was generally a constant there, up until the day she destroyed them, but that's another story. But most noteworthy Scarlet Witch stories did take place during the Avengers. Quicksilver is like first and foremost an Avenger, but he has so many ties to the X-Men and other corners. Like, he's got more ties to the X-Men than Wanda ever did, and he had a child with a member of the Inhuman royal family, so I mean, he has a life outside the Avengers. So there you have it. When Captain America would return, he would have a whole new team under his leadership, and the entire dynamic of the book changed, for the better in my opinion. Each of these new characters had their own distinct abilities and personalities to go with them, and most of all, each of them had something to prove, you know, to themselves or to the peers or to the entire world. Now that brings us to the 10th Avenger, the aptly named Avenger X, known as Cressida. So in late 2016, Mark Waid was rebooting the Avengers for the Marvel Now event. The team had Spider-Man, Falcon, Captain America, Jane Foster, Thor, the Vision, and Hercules. So, should tell you something about where they were at that point. Along with this story, there were several Point One stories, and they took place in the era of Cap's kooky quartet. Then we find this girl being hunted by the Stranger. The Avengers showed up and helped her escape, but then they found she had the ability to boost their powers and make them better, but she had a dangerous secret that went along with that, was that to boost their powers, she actually drained the life force of other people around. Nonetheless, she was offered membership in the Avengers, and she accepted it. She helped the team defeat the Mad Thinker, and he was like, oh, I didn't calculate for this X Factor. So then Hawkeye was like, well, let's call her Avenger X. And even the official Marvel webpage lists her as the 10th Avenger. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but she's the 10th Avenger, right? Roman numerals, Avenger X. Disappointed in you, Mark Waid. She never came up outside of this story, so honestly, I don't count her. I don't think she counts. Marvel's website officially lists her as the 10th member of the Avengers, but I don't. As I decided earlier, I'm the official record keeper here, so honestly, I guess if you want to include Cressida as the 10th Avenger, then my video is going up to 11. I like reboots and retcons, and I like when they can be fit in amongst the other pages, but to have this Avenger that existed that just nobody acknowledges, so no, she's not the 10th Avenger, she's not an Avenger, in my official opinion. Disappointed in you, Mark Waid. But anyway, I'm still gonna keep talking about her. She would go on to sow deceit amongst the Avengers and even boost some of the powers of their opponents, leading to Ox of the Enforcers breaking both of Quicksilver's legs. But long story short, she was caught, and ultimately she was encased in a tomb by Paste Pot Pete, where she would remain for years until the modern Avengers found her and she broke out and tried to stop them, and they locked her in the microverse, and she's never appeared again as of the time of this recording. So the true 10th Avenger was, also just a footnote in the grand scheme of things, it was the Swordsman, Jacques Duquesne. He actually showed up in the Hawkeye series. He was actually a sword guy at the carnival when Clint Barton was young growing up, and he trained him, and they actually worked as a duo for a little while until the Swordsman got caught stealing. And then he decided to leave the carnival and he became a costumed adventurer bad guy with his sword. But then one day he was like, you know what would actually help me be an awesome criminal? Would be an Avengers ID card. So he decided, he was like, I'm gonna go join the Avengers. Avengers number 19 was his first appearance, and he broke into the mansion to defeat the Avengers, wanting to get in membership, but that didn't work. So then he tricked Captain America and tied him up, and he's like, I'm gonna kick Captain America off of this roof and kill him unless you make me the leader of the Avengers. I don't know why he thought that was a good idea, but then Cap actually jumped. He's like, nope, they're not making the decision. He jumped, just showing how much they had grown as a team, and they all managed to save him. Quicksilver spun around and slowed his descent. Hawkeye shot an arrow that untied his hands, and Wanda used her hex bolts to bring out some beams for him to land on. And then they apprehended the Swordsman, but he got teleported away by the Mandarin, and the Mandarin is like, okay, here's the plan. You're getting on the Avengers and you're gonna plant a bomb. So the Mandarin sends off a hologram of Iron Man, and Iron Man's like, yeah, this guy, he was supposed to join your team. I fully condone this. And they were like, oh, okay, I guess if Iron Man says so, then sure. So he joins the team, he plants the bomb, and the Mandarin's like, yeah, when Iron Man shows back up the base, I'm gonna blow up the bomb and defeat Iron Man. And then after like a day of waiting, Mandarin's like, screw it, I'm blowing up the bomb now, because I'm impatient. He even says that. He's like, due to my own impatience, I'm blowing up the bomb now. And the Swordsman gets a change of heart for one reason and one reason only, and it's because he finds the Scarlet Witch hot. He's like, well, I don't want to kill her. So he is disarming the bomb, but then he gets caught. And they think he's planting the bomb, but he's disarming it, and they beat him up and kick him out. So once again, he joined the Avengers and then left in one day, but he is the official 10th Avenger, or 11th if you want. But no, he's the 10th. And he does actually go on to say that something about being an Avenger just gets into your blood. And over the years, the Swordsman would show up again, sometimes as a bad guy, sometimes as a good guy, and he would actually join the Avengers for good and then die a hero's death saving Mantis. So there you have it though, the first 10 or 11 Avengers. I hope you learned something. I know that I did in researching this. So if you could leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Again, the best compliment you can give me is to share this video with others that you think might like it. And if you know of any teams that need this done, you want to learn the first 10 about them, or if you're more interested in me going into the next 10 Avengers, just let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and be sure to be on the look for more great Haussmann content coming in the future.